France is one of those countries that feels familiar before it feels understood. You know the food, you know Paris, you know the Eiffel Tower. But France is not just a cultural postcard, it is a geopolitical heavyweight whose influence far exceeds what its size alone would suggest. To understand France, you have to look at how geography, population, economics, and history reinforce each other. France sits in Western Europe at a strategic crossroads. It borders 8 countries and connects 3 major maritime zones: the Atlantic Ocean, the English Channel, and the Mediterranean Sea. This location made France a bridge between Northern Europe, Southern Europe, and the wider Atlantic world. Trade passed through it, armies crossed it, ideas spread from it. At the heart of France lies the Paris Basin, a broad, fertile lowland that allowed agriculture, transport, and political authority to concentrate early. Unlike countries divided by mountains or deserts, France could centralize power. Paris didn't just become the capital because of politics, it became the capital because geography allowed it to dominate the surrounding territory. Rivers reinforced this system. The Seine links Paris to the sea. The Loire crosses the agricultural heartland. The Rhone connects northern Europe to the Mediterranean. Together, they formed one of Europe's earliest integrated economic networks. France's borders also shaped its security. The Pyrenees formed a natural barrier with Spain. The Alps shielded the eastern frontier. The Atlantic protected the west. Geography didn't make France invincible, but it made it defensible, which mattered in a continent defined by war. Today, France has a population of about 68 million people, making it one of the most populous countries in Europe. Unlike many developed nations, France has maintained relatively strong birth rates, supported by family policies and immigration. This gives France a demographic advantage in a region facing rapid aging. French society is diverse. Post-World War II immigration, especially from North and West Africa, reshaped the country. France officially rejects ethnic or religious categorization, emphasizing a republican model based on citizenship and secularism. In practice, this creates tension between universal ideals and lived social inequality. These tensions show up in politics, protests, and debates over identity, but they also reflect France's role as a post-imperial global society. Economically, France is a major global player. It has one of the largest economies in the world, typically ranking between 6th and 8th by nominal GDP. France is not just a service economy or a tourist destination. It is industrial, technological, and export-oriented. France is a leader in aerospace. Airbus, headquartered in France, competes directly with Boeing and produces aircraft used by airlines worldwide. France is also dominant in nuclear energy, generating roughly 70% of its electricity from nuclear power, one of the highest shares globally. This gives France relatively stable energy prices and lower carbon emissions compared to its neighbors. The country is also a major arms exporter, ranking among the top 5 globally. French-made fighter jets, submarines, and missile systems are sold across Europe, the Middle East, and Asia. Defense is not just about security, it is a pillar of France's industrial base. Agriculture remains central as well. France is one of the largest agricultural producers in Europe, exporting wheat, dairy, wine, and specialty products worldwide. French agriculture benefits from fertile land, state support, and deep integration into EU markets. Tourism adds another layer. France is consistently the most visited country on Earth, drawing tens of millions of visitors each year. But tourism complements France's economy. It does not define it. Politically and militarily, France is exceptional. France is one of 5 permanent members of the United Nations Security Council, giving it veto power over major global decisions. It is one of 9 nuclear-armed states and maintains an independent nuclear deterrent entirely under national control. This matters. France does not rely on NATO nuclear sharing the way most European countries do. France also has one of the most capable militaries in Europe. It can deploy forces overseas independently, conduct air and naval operations, and sustain long-term missions abroad. French troops operate in Africa, the Middle East, and the Indo-Pacific, not as symbolic presence, but as active security actors. This global reach is reinforced by geography beyond Europe. France possesses overseas territories across the Caribbean, South America, the Indian Ocean, and the Pacific. These territories give France the second largest exclusive economic zone in the world, after the United States. That means access to maritime resources, trade routes, and strategic positioning far from Europe. Culturally, France remains influential. French is spoken on every inhabited continent. French legal systems, administrative models, and diplomatic norms shaped international institutions. Ideas about citizenship, secularism, and the role of the state were exported during the colonial era and continue to influence global governance today. Inside Europe, France plays a unique role. It is neither purely economic like Germany, nor purely Atlantic like the UK once was. France sees itself as a strategic power, pushing for European autonomy in defense, industry, and foreign policy. This vision is driven by history. France has been invaded repeatedly, occupied, and forced to adapt. Dependence in French political memory is dangerous. France's political system reflects this. It is centralized, presidential, and designed for decisiveness. Protests are common, trust in elites fluctuates, but the state itself remains strong. France faces real challenges: economic inequality, integration failures, political polarization, and competition from rising powers. But it also retains assets few countries possess simultaneously: population scale, industrial capacity, military independence, diplomatic reach, and cultural influence. France is not a superpower in the American or Chinese sense, but it is one of the rare countries that can still shape events rather than simply react to them. France's role in the world is also shaped by how it understands decline and adaptation. Unlike rising powers, France does not chase dominance. It manages relevance. This makes its strategy subtle but persistent. Paris invests in diplomacy, multilateral institutions, and long-term influence rather than raw expansion. French officials often speak the language of rules, norms, and international law, not because France is weak, but because it helped write many of those rules. France's relationship with Africa illustrates this complexity. Former colonies remain tied to France through language, currency arrangements, military cooperation, and trade. This influence is controversial and increasingly challenged by local populations and new external actors like China and Russia. Yet France remains deeply entangled in African security and politics, reflecting both historical responsibility and strategic necessity. Inside Europe, France balances cooperation with competition. It relies on Germany's economic engine while quietly resisting German dominance. It supports European integration while guarding national sovereignty. This tension defines the European Union itself, and France sits at its center. At home, the French state remains unusually capable. Public services, infrastructure, education, and healthcare are still pillars of national cohesion. Strikes and protests may look chaotic, but they are also signs of a population that expects the state to function and demands it publicly when it fails. Ultimately, France's strength lies in continuity. Governments change, crises come and go, but the institutions endure.